What's up, good people? Welcome back for episode 3. Thank you very much for supporting my work and hearing what I have to say. So, this episode, we will just kind of pick up where I left off last time, and hopefully, we'll get through high school, through college, and then kind of drop us off right as I'm coming to New York and the exciting world of possibilities that we're going to, open up for me at that point. And then episode 4 will take it from New York, getting to New York, and then the beautiful journey that has been New York for me. But before that, we have to, like I said, sort of start where I left off and bring you from there to the New York portion of the journey. So one of the fundamental things that I learned, still living at my parents' house, still trying to, have a hustle or like learn things and put myself out there, was the iPhone came to Vermont. The iPhone on AT&T came to Vermont. And as I'm sure some of you guys remember, when it released, it was only under AT&T. So if you didn't have that, you couldn't get the iPhone. So I had to make the argument to my dad to switch us from Verizon to AT&T. This was not something he wanted to do. It was like a hassle. And he was partner at a company. So potentially, if I made a good enough argument, I could have it be that not only our family switched, but also his company switched. So I had like a big incentive to make this work. So I said to him, I was like, no, we have to switch. Like the iPhone's coming. Before the iPhone, we had like Blackberries. I didn't have a Blackberry, but like, the professional world had like Blackberries. We had like Envies, the little hot dog phone that opened. No, absolutely not. The iPhone was worlds ahead of everything else, and it was flashy and new, and we had to have it. So he said to me, you go to AT&T, price everything out, then go back to Verizon, ask them how much, everything is now, and make a proposal, and we'll revisit it. So for the next like 3 weeks, I was going back and forth between these two places on all of my sort of free time and pricing these things out, trying to like figure out how I was going to do this. And finally got all the prices, everything was down, went and proposed it to him, did all the work, and he was like, okay, we can switch. My brother got to like reap the benefits of that. My mom got to reap the benefits. All the people that worked at his company did, including him. I was like, yeah, you're all welcome. Okay. But definitely worth it, because even in school, like not a ton of people had the iPhone right away. And of course, as millennials all know, like being the first ones to have something is like, the best possible case scenario. So that was a big win for me. And then shortly after that, my best friend, like my whole life, she was a really big soccer player. And at this point, this was like our junior year, I want to say. At this point, I'd already stopped playing club sports. Like it just, I was like gaining weight. It was just not part of my rebellion. So I wasn't playing sports at the time. And my best friend was like a really big soccer player. She loved it. She was on the team. And she had torn one of her ACLs sophomore year, which was devastating for her, but it wasn't during season. So at least I think it was like midway through the season. I don't know. Anyway, but then junior year, when she tore her other ACL, yep, both, it was right before season, and it was devastating for her. So I decided that in order for us to come back together in a sports capacity, because we hadn't been playing sports together for so long. I mean, she went the soccer route, the soccer route, and I went the field hockey route. So we weren't even playing the same sport anymore. I thought like maybe it would be fun to figure out something we could do together during this time, during this like fall after school time. I didn't want to be home, and she didn't want to be home. So we found that our school had a rowing club, and they did like meets, and they had practice, and they did all the things. They just weren't like an official sport from the school. So we joined that, and we were such strong rowers on the team that we never were allowed to be in the same boat because we were the two best rowers. We had like kayaked and done things. We knew the vibes beforehand, but we had never like done this for sport. But we were so good that they would never let us in the same boat. So we were always in different boats. It never actually brought us together that much, but whatever. And we went to like meets. We went to like Massachusetts. We had all these meets that we were part of with this club. So it was like fun. It was like, again, just learning a skill that you didn't know you had before and in a very unlikely place. And, there's those moments in your life when those things are more valuable than, I don't know, getting a little bit better at the thing you already knew you were good at or something, and getting out of your comfort zone, driving pretty far to the practices, being on a team with literally people you've never met before, barely knew existed. The coach, we didn't know her, so it's like a very eye-opening experience to know that like you don't always have to do the safe thing or, keep going at just one thing. You can just branch out and take a risk. Like, why not? If you hate it in a week, you can quit, but chances are you won't hate it, and now you're gonna have something else you can add. So that was really cool. And then, okay, so then that was our senior year. So then every senior at my high school had to do this project. It was just called like a senior challenge, and we had to choose something that either we made, like it's like a project, like you make it, or you spend time doing it. So like, you could volunteer somewhere and you could have hours that you showed, or you could like build something, or like the sky was really the limit, but you had to either make something that you have a finished tangible product and it determines how many pages your paper has to be because it's a little bit less if you're making something, or you do an experience and then your paper is longer because you have like more time to be doing the paper. So my brother, when he did his senior project, he built a guitar from like a kit all the way up from basically scratch. And for me, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I mean, at this point, I had done so many creative things. I didn't even know what I could think to do. So when I was growing up, we had like hemp necklaces were like a big trend. And a lot of the ones that you saw would have like those big knob, like glass beads at the end. And they were always like really trippy and really cool. And it was so interesting to me. So I went and I learned how to glass blow. And for my senior project, what we had to do was we had to present it to this panel of like adults. Most of them were teachers, but some of them weren't. And then peers in the classroom. And I brought a lathe to school, blew glass right in front of them. It was the most intense shit ever. It was so crazy. Like, I don't even, in hindsight, like, I have no idea what I was thinking. I could have just brought in beads and shown them, but no, I had to be that crazy girl with a freaking like flamethrower basically in class making glass. But again, just something that was really scary. I was so nervous, like, oh my God. But you're graded on how well you can do the thing when you're presenting it, also how well the things that you've brought to show them that you made are. So really pushed me there, really brought me all the way outside of my comfort zone, but was a fantastic choice. Like, I regret nothing. And the time that I spent with this woman that taught me this was so amazing. She was like another Jewish mother to me, and that was priceless. And then when I was looking for colleges, my mom basically said, you can either have a like college counselor that helps you find college that you want to go to, or you can get like an SAT tutor to help you test better. I was like, yeah, tests are not my thing. I'm not doing that. So yeah, let's do the college counselor. So we looked around. He was like so great. He helped me find a lot of liberal arts colleges in Boston, which is where I knew I wanted to be. I mean, I was always a city kid, trapped in a little tiny town, but the city was always where I wanted to be, a city. So having Boston be such a big part of my like growing up, we went to Boston all the time. It was really close, and we had family there, and all of my sports teams are there. Like, I was Red Sox to the bone, and Celtics and Patriots later on. But really a big Boston fan. So anyway, it just made sense for me to go there. And I toured like 5 schools in or around the Boston area. And once I walked on the campus of the school that I chose, it was called Wheelock. It's not even a school anymore. BU actually bought it. But I don't know, something just felt right and I was home. I wasn't gonna go anywhere. This is where I wanted to be. And I couldn't really explain it because it was like really small, smaller than my high school. But I don't know, there was just something about it that I really loved. So that's where I chose, and he helped me to find that school, and I'm just like so grateful because I never would have found this tiny little school without his help. So, you know, going through, like, I would have to go to his office like every week, and it was such a commitment, and I like kind of dreaded it. I wanted to be with my friends and stuff, but totally worth it. And you know, for any kid that like has a lot of things that they could be good at or a lot of things that they could be interested in, this is like such a good option because you just don't know what you don't know. And like I had parents that went to state schools. They didn't know, like, you know, so many schools had like become a thing since they went to school. They didn't know what they were, you know, recommending. So this was really good for me. And then so the day before I went to college, I was packing up the last couple of things in my suitcases to bring to college with me. And I get a knock on, or like there's a knock on the door, and my mom answers the door, and she just like yells down to me like, "Hey Lucy, like, can you come down here for a second?" I come downstairs, there's 4 cops outside of my house. And they're there because, so a little blast from the past here for millennials or people my age. When we used to go to parties in high school, people didn't have like cell phones with good quality. Like everyone's cell phone was just this little crappy thing that like you had a pixelated photo of something. So people were bringing actual cameras to parties. And that's how we documented our fun. That's how we documented, you know, like the parties we went to. And they would make their way to Facebook. Like you would have a party, you'd have all this fun, and then the next day you'd wait for whoever it was with the camera to upload their photos to Facebook so that you could like relive your night. It was like the highlight of the whole, you know, time. So we were in my barn, like I was saying before. We lived in the barn, and then once the house was built, we moved into the house. And then the barn was just like storage. There was a downstairs and an upstairs, so it became a nice spot for parties. So my brother and his friends would have parties in there, and then when he graduated, went to college, I kind of inherited it and started having parties too. But what we didn't mention was that my brother and his friends like to go around to all of the towns around us, and they would steal the street signs off of the poles and collect them and put them into our barn and decorate the walls with them. So when we were taking all these nice photos for Facebook, we didn't realize, because we were so focused on not showing a beer can, that we didn't realize that what we should have been worried about was the street signs in the background of the photos. So the cops knocked on my door the day before I left for college with a search warrant with my name on it, talking about, oh yeah, this took us like a year to piece it together, whose barn this was, where this was. And we figured out that it was your house. I'm like, my name is on Facebook. It took you guys a year to find. Anyway. And so they came and they took pictures of the whole barn and they walked around the whole thing. And then like a week later they came and they took all the signs. And my mom worked for the legislature, the Vermont legislature at the time. And, you know, she had pull in certain places and helped us out of that. But at the time, he was like, yeah, everyone in your family is going to have a different court date. And you're all going to go and have to, like, say what happened individually. I'm like, what the hell? This was, like, the day before I was getting out of this place. And, like, now I'm going to have to, like, come back in 2 weeks and, like, stand in front of a judge and talk about something I didn't even do. It wasn't even part of it. It was, like, my brother and his dumb little friends. Anyway, so my mom helped that quietly go away, however she did. But what a send-off. Vermont was like, oh yeah, now that you want better for yourself, now that you want to get out there and see the world, we're going to try and claw you back. I'm like, nah, bro, you don't get it like that. I'm out of here. Um, so then, yeah, so I went to Wheelock, and freshman year, it was an absolute blast. I had the best time ever. It was so deeply where I was supposed to be. Met a ton of good people, had a lot of different groups of friends. My next door neighbor freshman year was on the field hockey team, and she convinced me to like walk on the team. So I did that. I had my mom send me all my stuff, and I walked onto the field hockey team, and oh my God, it was also a great decision. Like 5:45 a.m. in the team room every single morning, unless we had a game that day. So brutal. We had 3-a-days during preseason. I played on that team every single year that I was at that college, and I regret nothing, but I am the opposite of a morning person. So you already know, if I'm up that early, I like what I'm doing. Um, but yeah, I met a lot of people through that. And when you're like the newbie on the field hockey team, and there's like all these upperclassmen girls that are like so excited to have newbies, they like bring you to the parties and they like introduce you to all the people. So that was really dope. Like I had friends over here, I had friends over here, friends over here, and none of them were really friends with each other. One of the things that's been consistent about me throughout my life is that I don't really have like a group of friends. I have like one friend from this group and one friend from this group and one friend from this group. I get along with most of the other people, but we're not like friends with all of them. So in the end of the day, you have a collection of people that are not friends with each other. So you can kind of pick whichever one you want, or like go towards whichever day you want, and they're not all going to be busy because they're not all doing the same thing. So I met a ton of people. I met my very best friend in the whole world at Wheelock. His name was Leland, and oh my God, this kid just like got me. It was so crazy. Not only was he a boy, I mean, as you know, I grew up with boys all around me, so I understood them. I kind of spoke their language pretty well, but like having a boy that's like from Boston and like seemingly in every single way possible different from you, completely get you, be 100% on the same page you are, emotionally, like, personality wise. It was actually crazy. That was the first time, and still to this day, the only person I've ever met that has really like matched my like vibe. And yeah, so I met him at Wheelock, and he introduced me to a lot of people. And again, just like having a place where I had all these people that I liked was something I'd never had in my whole life before. So it really helped me to feel like I was where I was supposed to be. And when you leave home for the first time, that's not something that everybody feels. So I felt very lucky to have that. So then, right before freshman year ends, I had 4 friends that tell me, hey, I just want you to know. And mind you, one of them was someone that I hung out with almost every day. Like, hey, I just wanted to tell you that like I'm not coming back next year. I'm like, what? Like, we just had so much fun. We just had the best year ever. Like, what do you mean you're not coming back? 2 of them, it was like for financial reasons. One of them, her brother had a baby, so she wanted to be there for like his growing up, didn't want to be too far away. And, the other one just transferred to another school. So I just felt like I had to start over. Like, it wasn't actually that, but I was like, what am I going to do now? So I went home in between freshman and sophomore year, and I was like, I have no idea what I'm about to do. This has totally derailed every, social structure I had in place before this. I have no idea. So I went back sophomore year, and within a week I was in my academic advisor's office saying like, I need to go abroad second semester. Like, cool, fine, sophomore year, like, I'm here for field hockey for fall semester, but like, spring semester, I have to go abroad. Like, I can't wait. I need to go. So she got me hooked into this program that like connects a lot of schools around the country, and we all kind of come together and we go to whatever city you want to go to. So I picked Florence, Italy, because it was still small enough, but it was still in Italy. I'd never been there before. I really wanted to go. And I didn't want to do like Rome or I don't know. Florence was just like a very logical pick for me. And so I did that. And even though my Leland was actually one of the ones that didn't come back sophomore year, but he lived in the area, so he would like come by and we would hang out and we would, chop it up, whatever the case may be. And so he was still around, but he didn't go to the school. He wasn't there every day. So again, going abroad was very necessary. And it wasn't one of those things where I felt like I was going to miss anything. It was like, it just made sense to go when I did, I guess. And, I had been traveling a bunch throughout my life, so it wasn't like I was going to miss my family and too much to go or something. So I just was like, you know what? We're out. So that was one of the best experiences I've ever done in my whole life. That was such a great choice. I am so happy I did that. And, I got plugged in with all these kids from all over the country, like places I've never even been before, like Nebraska. I've never even been there before, but some of them knew each other, but most of the time it was just people that were like meeting for the first time. And we lived in apartments. A couple of us got like randomly placed in apartments together, and it was awesome. My friends and I, while we were abroad, we weren't really the type to hang out with the other kids in our program. Like, we went out into Florence and met the Italians and did the Italian things. Like, we weren't doing the tourist things. We weren't seeing other people from our trip out at night when we would go out. Which is kind of always how I've done cities. Like, I don't really want to meet the other transplants. Like, I want to meet the people from there, because that's how you get the actual taste of the city. That's how you get to know things and, just better acclimate, have the better experiences, learn the better things. So that was definitely what we did. And met a ton of people that like worked at bars or owned bars that we became really good friends with, and traveled a bunch of weekends. We went all over the place. It was just so much fun. And then you Skype with your friends from home or like school, right? And they're just like, yeah, going to parties, like, it just, you were having such an exponential experience compared to what they were. And not that you were comparing, but it's like you just got these reminders all the time that you were not missing out on anything. You were supposed to be away and supposed to be having these experiences. And this was also a time when, right before I left, I like broke up with my boyfriend, and so it was like a really good time to just get away and not slip back into that, and get a little bit of clarity in your mind and just freedom, right? Actually, while I was abroad, I had this really scary experience one night where I got roofied, which, a lot of girls unfortunately can relate to that experience. Nothing happened. Thank God I had my roommate there with me, but definitely got roofied and definitely barely made it home, and had to, one of these guys like followed me home. I was also with my friend from growing up. He had just been visiting me during that week, and really scary. This guy came out of the bar, he like threw a bottle at my head and obviously missed me, but smashed on the building behind my friend's head. And it wasn't like a beer bottle, it's like a wine bottle. So anyway, just like, being in a foreign place and also going up to the police, trying to get them to help you. And they're like, I mean, you can sit here with me if you want. Like, what do you want me to say? So we were like, cool, so no one's gonna help. We have to figure this out for ourselves. We can't go home because he's gonna follow us. Like, just navigating these things in these places. It's not like I was scared. It's not like I thought I was gonna die or something, but you're like basically blipping in and out of consciousness, and you have to be figuring something out. So just really grateful to have good people around me during that trip, which was, again, not something that I could always count on in my life. So really, the next morning really woke me up. I didn't go out again for a long time after that, because it was just like the bartender must have done it. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't even let this person buy me a drink. Anyway, but it was very clear that it was roofie, because I'm the type of person that, like, I've never even blacked out from drinking. Like, I just don't. It's like my body doesn't do that. So I just knew. And then also, as he followed us out of the bar, it was very clear what the intentions were trying to be. So anyway, very much a learning experience, very much not kosher. And when you're so far away and so far away from people that you can really trust, having people around you that'll have your back, just nothing compares. Absolutely nothing compares. And then I got back to school for junior year, and I was living with somebody, one of my friends at the time, and she ended up completely turning on me and going like full on crazy. And when we were back, this little small liberal arts college that I thought was like this little safe choice that everybody has these like kosher experiences at the small schools. We had this massive drug arrest on our campus. Then we had this guy from our school go to this other school's campus and murder somebody and then come back to our campus. So the cops came to our campus to arrest him. And he was like walking around for a couple days before they arrested him, and I definitely knew about it. So it's like very much not well, just being like, didn't really know the kid, knew this happened. He's still like going to class, everything's normal. And then there was this other crazy girl who graduated college, and then once she was out, she re-enrolled herself in high school and pretended to be a child and frauded the whole Boston system. She was working at DCF at the same time as she was a student in the school. And she was like one of my friends that left school after freshman year. She was her roommate, so I knew this girl. And she was also involved in some of the other friendships I had, but I was never friends with this girl. She was just always, she and I were like enemies. I don't know. I never did anything to her. She definitely tried to do a lot of things to me, but anyway. She ended up getting felony fraud charges for being a total crazy pie, but she was never out of her mind. She was never insane. She did all of these things in her sane mind. She just had this weird, like, desperation for attention. So it wasn't like she's like an insane person. She did this all calculated. She like wanted attention so badly that she calculated all these plans for like 15 years to do all these crazy things. And her federal fraud charges are like a drop in the bucket compared to the other things that she did. But those Hulu docuseries and all that stuff will come out much later, so it won't be a secret. And the court case is already out, so that's already put to bed. But anyways, so then that was just like a taste of the type of people that I went to school with. Just like very either like relatively normal or like the polar opposite. You always just kind of felt like something would pop up. So then I had this class called Human Services, and at the end, this was senior year too, and at the end of it, you got a certificate in Human Services. So everybody had like, you know, working at a nursing home or like, you know, doing some sort of giving back service where they can clock hours and have something to show from their experience there. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to finesse this any possible way I can to do what I want. So there was this brand in Boston at the time called Karmaloop. And they were like a fashion company, but they grew into a media company. And so they had both. They had, you know, they hosted brands. Karmaloop wasn't the clothing brand, but they hosted other brands, like all the things we loved back then, like Obey and all that shit. And then they also had this media company. So I really wanted to work for Karmaloop, but there were a lot of schools that had degrees where it was kind of like feeding into the very small amount of like fashion companies in the city. So it was really, really competitive to get these jobs because schools like Emerson were like pumping people out and feeding these companies. So I had to like really get creative, and I figured out that that Karmaloop had this nonprofit called Future Boston. And what they did was they were involved in the politics of the city and like policies that were coming up, but they were also using Karmaloop's connections, so like their corporate friends and their big investors, and connecting them with artists in the city that were trying to like make it up and get a name for themselves and like do well. So Future Boston would have an event like every week or sometimes every 2 weeks, bringing together their friends from like the, you know, investor side of things, and then their artist friends from the city, and hoping to like connect them and make some magic. So I was helping plan all these very lavish events at these gorgeous places for all these really cool people to come and like connect and see if they wanted to invest in each other or vibe together or like do more together. So I was meeting all these really cool people, and when I would go back to class, and the kids in my class would be like, yeah, so I met this woman this week and she told me this story about her daughter and it was so like moving. I was like, yeah, I got to meet the Bad Rabbits this week. It was really cool, which was like a you know, band in Boston that was like well known, and just our stories are very different, and I really finessed that into working out for me as a human services certificate, but somehow also being exactly where I wanted to be and surrounded by the people I wanted to be with. So my friend, well, my boss at the time, Malia, and then I kind of had two bosses, Malia and Emily. They were both wonderful, wonderful women and helped shape so much of my professionalism and you know, where I wanted to go after that. And just Emily had graduated from an art school, so she had this like really unique view of how to do things, and she was super smart. And Malia was like very much an activist, and she was out in the world learning about a lot of things. We went to like to see the mayor speak, and we saw some like senators speak. We saw a lot of stuff, so it was just like a wonderful, wonderful experience. But then one of the last things that I experienced before I moved to New York was in 2013, which was the same year I graduated. All of my girls from the Feel Lucky team were down on Boylston for the marathon, the Boston Marathon, and they were at a bar called Whiskey's, which was very, very close to the finish line. And they invited me to go, but I was like a little bit later. They had already been there for a while. So when I showed up, everybody was pretty drunk, and I was dead sober. And within 20 minutes of me being there, the second bomb went off about a block and a half from where we were. The whole entire bar shook. Everybody was screaming. The lights were flickering on and off. The music stopped. And then you start to realize that you're in this massive crowd of people. I mean, there were so many people inside the bar, out on the streets. Obviously, it's Marathon Monday. And we realized what had happened, and we realized we had to get the F out of there. And so we started making our way towards the door, but everybody, again, was drunk, panicked. It was a lot. And I realized that I had to be the one to get everybody out because I was sober. I was like, you know, the only one that had a fair chance of actually getting us to safety away from the mob. Not like someone was on foot and gonna kill us, but like, you know, the mob outside was screaming and running like a chicken with their head cut off too. So I got everybody out, and as we leave, we're seeing like people sitting on the ground. There's blood on the sidewalk. I won't talk about the other things that I saw, but it was a lot. It was very, very, very intense. And got everybody back to campus, and then I usually would have taken the T from school back to my house, but I needed the walk that day, and I don't even remember that walk. Completely out of my head. I don't even know what happened, but I got home, and then all through the night, the Boston police told everybody, like, don't leave your houses. We don't know where they are. Like, it's a dangerous thing. So my roommate at the time had a connection to the like police radio, and we were listening in, and the two brothers that did this were on foot on our street running away from this, and we're actually found like 10 to 15 blocks away from where we lived. So we were just, it just felt like you kind of couldn't get away from it. It was like everywhere you looked, and that was a little bit scary and new. But you know, it made me realize that I was good in a scary situation. I was level-headed, wasn't scared. I didn't like let these things affect me too much, and that I could like do it. And then it kind of started to make me realize that I needed to be taking more risks. I needed to be getting out there more. I needed to be stop, I don't know, being in this very comfortable space. So I decided to blow my life up and break up with that same boyfriend again and move to the city and leave it all behind. I was in the middle of a lease. I had nowhere to go. I called my aunt and I said, hey, is it okay if I stay with you for a little while until I figure it out? She said, yeah. Literally 2 weeks later, packed up all my stuff, left, and my cousin, who, like my aunt's son, where I was moving to, helped me to get all my stuff together. We got an apartment together after 3 months of me being here. And then another girl that I'll get into next episode, but found a job within 2 weeks of living here also. So I moved here in April, right in the beginning of April, and within 2 weeks I found a job in real estate law, which was like the last place that you would ever expect me to be. But anyway, so now we are at the New York sort of portion of the story, and the next episode will just get into all the juicy details of what I did once I was in New York, which is like so cool and so exciting, and really like a highlight reel of my life has been living in New York. So that will be next episode, but I'm glad that we're finally caught up and we're finally at sort of a more current day sort of timeline, and now I can talk about all of the best parts of my life and the best things that have ever happened to me that have guided me to a place that has never, ever, ever made more sense to me than where I am now. So stick around, stay tuned for next week, and thank you guys so much for being here.